And now, another hour of the greatest hit music around the world. Zoe Green.
Savoy Brown, The First Night. That was a chosen track by Melvin Hancock, who we have in the studio.
Hello,
how are you
Zoe.
doing? You okay?
I'm tickety-boo.
Good. I'm just turning up your levels. We might not have got you then. Say hello again.
Hello, Zoe, and hello, everyone.
So we've got your band in the studio. We've got Matt Little. How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah.
And we've got Ray Richman on drums in the back.
Morning.
Brother Ray and Mighty Matt.
Ray's hiding in the corner at the back. He actually requested a cupboard, but we couldn't fit him with a cupboard, so he's
There's
hiding
one
behind his
being
bongos.
built.
But he's also brought a chick with him, who will be answering most of his questions, we believe.
It's Chick Corea.
Chick Corea.
Chick Corea.
Anyway, we've listened to 3 of your tracks so far at the start of this show, Melvin. So tell me about the tracks we've listened to. The first one, Atomic Rooster, The Rock.
Okay, well, you know, Vincent Crane's band, the keyboard player, and he's probably the only keyboard player I like, actually. You know, it's always piano and Hammond, and it's very soul-based music he plays, and he's the only person who's inspired me as a guitar player on the keyboards.
Right.
And so with that track, Paul Hammond's on drums, and they've got to get, because there's no bass player in the band, so he does all the bass playing with his feet and a strong left hand work. And that, in essence, is the basis for the rhythm section for Mighty Matt Little and Brother Ray in this band.
Okay.
So that I can just play melodies over the top of it, but that sort of strong soul-based rhythm. Because if you listen to something like Otis Blue or something like that, you know, they're always very strong rhythms, those soul records. And it's probably where Zeppelin and the Jeff Beck group, you know, around the same time have come from with the rhythms. And so I think that's where it's entrenched, our music.
Okay, so talking about your band, the Melvin Hancock's band, this is a fairly new venture for you.
Yes.
And so where you've got just you guys as your members, is there anyone else that's not here today?
No, we're just a three-piece.
So just the 3 of you. And
Yes.
so what's the kind of vision for it?
The well, what I just said, I suppose. I mean, it's early days, but you know, we'll be doing our own material and a smattering of faves as well, you know. And well, it's one long road, really. I did my first gig when I was 12, and I didn't go to school a fat lot after that, really, you know. So I knew where I was going, and I've just followed the path through, really. And I keep on trucking.
Excellent. Well, that's the only way to go, I've been told. So
Not off.
good choice. So we'll be talking to all of you guys about where you've come from, the bands that you've been in, as the show goes on. Let's talk about a couple of the other songs that you chose. So the next one was, where did we go to? Savoy Brown, The First Night.
Oh, okay. Well, I picked that that's a dedication to my good friend Tom Farnell, who lives just up the road from me, about a mile away.
Tom?
Hello, Tom, baby. And Tom helped me out. I was in a band called the Notorious Brothers, and we were having a bit of trouble recording some of the drum tracks for an album we were making, the Marigold Summer Day show, in fact. And it went on for quite a while, this did, and I asked Tom, will you come over and do a session? And we had the whole thing done in 2 days with overdubs, you know, with
Excellent.
Tom. So just a great player, you know, a great local musician and a world-class musician.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also, the other thing, it was John Mayall, wasn't it, the other thing that was played?
That's right, the first one in was John Mayall. Well done.
And
I'm glad
so,
someone's in control here.
Well, they both lived... Kim Simmons leads Savoy Brown, and John Mayall, of course, is John Mayall.
Yeah.
And they've seen it through thick and thin, those guys. I mean, they've brought blues music back, even to America. I mean, John Mayall can sit with Alexis Corner and the Rolling Stones as reviving that art form, really, and selling it back to America, I suppose. And then Kim Simmons in the second generation of the blues boom thing. So, and they're still going, John and Kim, and they've moved base to America, but they're still functioning musicians. And as John Mayall sings, I live a special life, and you sort of do as a musician, you know, it's not a 9-to-5 existence, is it? So it's all in that song.
Okay, fabulous. And we've got a song coming up which looks very interesting. Budgie, the author.
Not half. Okay. Yeah, Welsh. Shall I talk about that one?
Yeah,
right now?
let's get the story on that one.
The author. Budgie are a three-piece Welsh trio. And it's from their first album, the original lineup. And Ray Phillips, the drummer in the band, I've worked with, and recorded a couple of albums with him actually. And you're not going to find a more a musician with more artistry than Ray or any of Budgie. You know, Tony Borge on guitar is a very underrated player. You know, Budgie are a very underrated band. They're lumped in with something like Judas Priest or Uriah Heep, that sort of heavy act. But and whilst they're good bands, there's a humour. Such a heavy band, and they're called Budgie for a start, and I think people miss the point there.
Right.
The fact they're called Budgie,
Yeah.
you know, this lightweight bird with this heavy sound. But they're sort of the quintessential power trio to me, Budgie, and interesting songs. I just love them. I love Budgie, you know. Great licks to Nick as well if you're learning guitar.
Don't tell him that, for God's sake. All right, let's have a listen to Budgie. This is called The Author. Champion Jack Dupree, Roll On. Tell us about that song, Melvin. That's another one of your choices today, isn't
Absolutely. Well, from the original mono Blue Horizon vinyl, produced by Mike Vernon. The reason I picked that, the Champion Jack song, was because, it's such a great groove, and part of that reason is down to Simon Kirk on drums and Paul Kossoff on lead guitar. And it doesn't Paul Kossoff just burn, and you can tell Champion Jack's really digging it when he's burning, baby. He burns a line straight across the room. I mean, he only plays 3 notes, and it burns a line straight across your mind, you know. So,
That's a lyric right there.
okay, well,
Hold on to
let's
that.
finish the song then, you know. Yeah, so it burns a line straight across my mind, and I hope it is on yours at home tonight, you know.
Well, I'm certainly getting an education here as usual. Melvin's brought in some really great tracks today, most of which I've never heard of, I have to say.
Oh, I must say, the band's Black Cat Bones backing Champion Jack there.
Yes.
And which, of course, turned into Free eventually.
Yes.
I'll shut up now.
Well, tell us about your next song choice. We're going to listen to some of your song choices before we move into some live music from you guys.
Okay.
So this is John Fogerty, Sugar.
Yeah, Sugar in my life, close brackets. Okay, yeah. Well, that's from the Deja Vu All Over Again set. And the reason I picked it was because everybody... a very influential album for me was Creedence Clearwater Revival's Pendulum.
Okay.
And it tends to get forgotten. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Forgotten, get forgotten.
Getting forgotten.
Okay, and people always think of it as the album where they split up, but I suppose it's John Fogerty's album for the Woodstock generation.
Okay.
But it's the most far-reaching. It's not so keep on choogling as an album, and it's a piece of work. And he, of course, you know, bands can sometimes be very nasty things and do your head in, and John had that done to him just thereafter, and so he came back after all these years, and he can still write those classic numbers, and I felt Sugar is just an all-time classic, and why not play that number instead
Absolutely.
of something from Pendulum? But the whole Pendulum album has a vibe and a feel.
Yeah.
And is very of the time, but it's sort of where my head is.
Okay. Ah,
Yeah.
well, that's perfect then, because
Okay.
what we're looking for is getting into your heads today.
Yes,
And,
it's a state of mind. The aesthetics of rock and roll, Zoe.
well, Melvin's head is a very open place that you can see coming before you meet him, and it's got patterns and swirls and all kinds of things happening around it.
Absolutely. To the gonosphere and beyond, outskirts of infinity, etc.
Matt Little sitting behind me looking scared, and I'm going to start picking on you in a minute, and Ray's just hiding in his cupboard and saying nothing apart from chick here. But let's move on. Let's have some John Fogerty. This is called Sugar. Small Faces Looking for a Love. Tell us about that, Melvin. That's a great track.
Absolutely. Well, the last time I was in here was with Bertie from Vincent Flats, and he wanted to play the Humble Pie's version of Black Coffee from the Whistle Test. And I thought, well, let's have a look at that, because we didn't get a chance to play it on air, did we, last time? So ran out of time.
Yeah, he sent me quite a lot of material.
Yeah, he would. Well, 20-minute versions of Whipping Post by the Allman Brothers eat into time slightly. But, so I thought, it's a dedication to you, Bertie, okay? And I picked the Small Faces Reformed, Steve Marriott, because I felt I listened to Black Coffee, and I thought it works well with the visuals, but not in an audible fashion, you know. So I picked somewhere in between the Small Faces and Humble Pie, and I went to watch Steve Marriott myself at the Hen and Chickens on the Wolverhampton Road in Albury before it was Flavour's Chinese Takeaway, or Sit-In I think it is, and it's one of those life-changing experiences. You know, I was 13 or something, managed to get in.
A year into your career?
Well, yeah, and the DTs, you know, Honey Boy Hickling's still gigging out there, you know, the DTs, they did a set first, and then Steve came on, and they were backing Steve, the DTs were as well, for his set, and they did a great set, great R&B set, and then he came on, and it wasn't volume, I think it's just him, his presence, his spirit, was sort of double the volume of the whole band. The power, it was the power of the man. Behind it, the voice, and he's very underrated guitar player as well, Steve Marriott was. So that's why I've picked it. Oh, of course, the first thing I did when I got home was pick up the guitar and practice all night.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
It was one of those life-changing moments.
Fantastic.
At
Very
a tender
funky.
age.
I like that song. Okay, so we've got in the studio with us today Melvin Hancock and his very fine members, Matt Little and Ray Richmond.
Best in the business.
Causing trouble behind me. I can't see what he's up to, but he's in the naughty corner and he's causing all kinds of trouble. So we're going to talk to these guys and find a little bit out about them as well. So coming to Matt Little. So how did you get into this nasty business of rock and roll, Matt?
Well, it all started when my father, who was a big musician in Birmingham, Curtis Little, obviously I was born and raised with lots of music at home.
Absolutely.
Me and my brother, a drummer as well, and he does lots of big gigs kind of thing. He's always doing sessions, so it's just in the blood really. I started off when I was about 18, did 4 years with my dad, and then since then I've been really lucky. I've played with lots of great bands. I did 4 or 5 years with Vincent Flats, who we've just been talking about. Did about 2 or 3 years with Joanne Shaw Taylor. I've done did 5 years in a reggae band as well, called the Trojans. So I've always been playing for the last 20 years.
All
and
really well-known bands, really great bands.
yeah, and now I've got the luxury of playing with Melvin and Ray, which is again just another string to my bow.
Fantastic.
Luxury you can afford.
Oh, now you can pick and choose, can't you? So you've obviously chosen the best in the industry. Ray Richmond. We're coming to Ray
Brother
Richmond.
Ray.
I don't know if
Thank
it's
you
going to
very
be him talking or his chick, but let's find out.